Welcome to the meta season after season 40, the meta number 20 or 30 or something. Anyway, season 40 after season 40. Welcome to the meta. Um, this probably isn't your first time, but if it is, what is the show? We are looking at the state of the competitive GAC meta and a few other things. We look at the 3v3 season, the 5v5 season with the various datacrons, ships, sort of the state of the game, etc., how it all relates to the GAC meta, what I think is going up, going down, what's coming, etc., etc. By the way, we'll be watching in the background JJ, or JJ's production, Twitch streamer, and this is one of his videos on YouTube. Plays a couple of characters in Kyber 2. Some interesting stuff. Anyway, back to the show. Who is me? Who am I? Who is Kim? I play in the top 100-ish, sometimes a little bit outside or sometimes in the top 10, depending on how much time I have and how I'm doing. But most importantly, I really watch an enormous amount of GAC fights, which is how I learn. That's how I get better. A big part of it, obviously. Learning from others, I think, is very important, which is why I started the Grand Arena Science in the first place. And now there's a great community of people who help each other out. So, welcome back. Yes, this is not a podcast. As I said before, there's 4 areas that I talk about. This show, since we're about to enter the 3v3 season and we have a new datacron set, I'll spend a little bit more time talking about both of those. But I will talk a bit about ships and 5v5. Yeah, you can read all of that if you want to know what I said. So, 3v3 and 5v5, or 3v3 plus set 8 and set 9. In general, not the most interesting season. Maybe not the most complicated season is a better way to put it. There's going to be a lot of, the first week is going to be crazy, as most first weeks usually are. Although this, in a way, will be, some of the first weeks you're not sure how a particular team will do because of a certain level 9, or maybe some level 6, or something like that, or some new characters, perhaps. But in this particular season, it's really more about who rolled all the good level 3s, or who rolled how many good level 3s. That's really what I feel it's going to be about, because the set 9 is sort of crazy in terms of the stats it provides to virtually any team, especially since the level 3 is sort of broken in terms of you get more stats than you should, basically, in mixed teams. So we'll see if that's fixed before the beginning of the week. I don't think so, but maybe. Of course, it also depends how many you have, but you can't apply them even if you wanted to every single one of your teams on offense and defense. Although it is mostly a defense thing, so I guess some of the big whales may. Well, so far you can't buy packs, but I'm sure that'll be possible like normal before the beginning of or the end of the lock. So I'm sure some of the whales probably will be able to get a whole bunch of the good level 3s. So we'll see how it is, but still, there's nothing really. It's meta defining in terms of you have to pick your offensive teams more carefully, but that just follows a pattern we've been having for the last like 4 or 5 months. It's not like there's any really crazy level 9s that you have to look out for that's going to totally change a counter, especially in 3v3. So yeah, it's really, where do you put your good level 3s? That's the big question in my mind. I don't foresee any unbeatable teams, although some GLs are going to be more difficult. Like, still, if you put Lord Vader on defense, what's the most popular counter to Lord Vader in 3v3s? SLKR. Okay, well, still use SLKR. He's going to work great. There's never a timeout risk in 3v3s with SLKR, especially with some additional crit damage or offense from set 8, or offense from set 9. Teams will be annoying, but in 3v3s, just be careful against timeout teams. Use the stacking offense. Use the hard counters, the ones that have insta-kill more available. Oh yeah, as I mentioned here, it is exactly these sets are following in the meta trend that I sort of saw coming slash predicted. Pat myself on the back here. I'm not the only one by any stretch of the imagination who's picked up on it since then, but the meta has sort of smoothed out in such that there's no teams right now that are like unbeatable. Every single team has a couple or more counters. It's just choosing it appropriately. And this is really what this set 9 is going to continue doing. Um, yeah, offense stacking teams are going to be important, both from a just mechanical perspective, but also from set 8. The 5% level 3 there is great against this uh, level 8, the set 9, additional health and protection. Of course, you have to choose a team that gives quite a few buffs. So Inquisitors are a good example. A lot of people say that 100% damage for Inquisitors if you're using them offense. Definitely not. Or offense pen up and defense, or offense up and defense penetration up. Not bad. Better to go with, or sorry, you go with that and the level 3 stacking in set 8. That's fantastic for the longer fights you're going to have. Yeah, and health percentage damage, Radis with exposes, Bad Patch, Seer, Padme, death mark abilities, from Death Trooper or Inquisitors perhaps. There's quite a few options in there. And there'll be a lot of these recommendations at the PioneerScience.com/datacrons in a couple of days, probably on Sunday or Monday. Those should be available with the updated set 8, set 9 recommendations for anybody to take a look at. Besides what I'm saying in here, that goes into a lot more detail about the particular recommendations. And another thing I wanted to mention in particular, I'll put the link in the notes of this video. There's a video recently from Sungita where he went through a bunch of teams just in 5v5, not 3v3, but his explanation, the thought process he used to see which teams are gaining and losing. And really, it's more like team mechanics that you should pay attention to in that video. Even though it's 5v5, the general concept is great. I was going to cover a little bit of that in this video, but I don't feel I really need to. Go watch his video or skip through a few bits of it. The guy is putting out so much good content, it's crazy. Yeah, definitely, I think the best content creator out there. Very close with Calvin. Both of them are really doing a bunch of awesome stuff recently. They've had some good collaborations with each other too. Yeah, go check out that video. It's great to think about the mechanics, to give you sort of a little teaser in which way you should think about how character kits work for the additional stats that this set is giving you. Yeah, what else to be aware of? Timeouts. Look out for timeout teams. If you're not sure if a team, like maybe in the past you fought it, but it's been difficult and you've won with only like 45, don't try if it has the good L3 of set 9. It will time out. Because this set has the L3. Everybody's gonna be talking about that. Everybody has been talking about that, but it doesn't really have an offensive counterpart. So it just makes strong teams on defense more strong. There's no real way to counterbalance it with an equal offensively strong ability or something like that. I mean, of course, and this is in some teams' video a bit too, but some teams do benefit from additional health and protection in terms of the damage, like Grievous or Maul. Maul, not so much. And 3s, I don't think is going to be amazing. Maybe better on defense with Bo-Katan or something. But really, there's definitely some characters who benefit from the additional stats to drive their offense. Vandor, Chewbacca, like I said, Grievous. Anyway, there's some interesting options in there, but there's also downsides when those teams are used on defense, as I mentioned before, the percentage health-based teams. So choose your counter carefully. None of the teams are going to present an insurmountable target. Like everything has a hard counter. There's no new level 9s or level 6s that make certain counters not work. Although the level 6, I'll talk about it at the end a little bit here. The Sith level 6 doubt one, very, very interesting. The downside is that, well, not downside. I think that Sith are going to be the most interesting faction in this 3v3 season. Because if you look at Old Republic, not really any Old Republic characters people are putting on defense or offense anyway, and they don't introduce any new mechanic that necessarily, especially in 3v3, going to offer a new dynamic to how the team works. Night Sisters, the Night Sisters are a great faction, they benefit a lot from this particular data set. Their level 6 is fantastic. But again, in 3s, even with their level 9s, I mean, you're still going to take bounty hunters or gas or something, or some revive preventer against Night Sisters, so it doesn't really make a difference. I mean, it shuts down Mare, and it shut down the revive, it shut down the additional plague. Like, I just don't see them. You know, maybe if they're in the back wall and you pull gas in front or you pull bounty hunters in front, then, you know, they may surprise people. And that's certainly, I think that's what this whole meta is all about in 3v3. The back wall surprise, as it has been for a while now, because if your opponent is prepared. But again, people save so many GLs for offense. How do you have a back wall surprise if they can't GL? Obviously, it depends on what, you know, league and division you're in. That certainly plays a role. But I think this meta is all about the rock, paper, scissors, you know, or rock, paper, timeout, I guess you could call it. Choose your counters carefully. Be careful in the first week. We'll talk again after the first week's over to see if anything really bizarre came up or unexpected. I'm sure there will be. There's always something. But I'm not expecting any Superman teams, really. So, 5v5 with these two Datacrons. I really don't think 5v5 is going to be that hard or that complicated. The Sith and the Night Sisters are going to make some interesting puzzles, but there's not that many of them. There's really only one Night Sister team in 5v5. I mean, you can do a little things here and there, but there's really only one Night Sisters team. Probably it's going to be on offense. Just use gas otherwise, or bounty hunters or something. The Sith are more interesting because you can make 2 Sith teams. I mean, easily, maybe even 3. And some of the level 3s for Sith are fantastic with Sith Eternal. Like, I think we're going to see some really interesting Sith Eternal teams on defense. But in 3s, it's not going to be a big role. And in 5s, it'll just make sure that you save more GLs for offense, which is anyway the trend for a while, or stronger teams, I guess. I think the winners in the Datacron selection are mainly going to show up in 5s, and that's Zombie, which also will be good in 3s, of course. But I really still don't think Zombie's going to be seen a lot on defense in 3s, so it'll be a nice offensive tool, but not really impacting much. I think in 5s, even though it'll be more on defense, I think it'll be impactful more frequently. Just because removing 50% turn meter from 5 units is a lot stronger than from 3 units, you know? And all the plague and stuff is going to be make Night Sisters even better on offense. They'll be able to kill a lot more. But the Sith, really, with Savage, I think, is going to have the sleeper. Savage and Zombie are probably the sleeper Omicrons, like a Treya team with Savage and Talon defense stack with Savage's level 9. Oof. That's tough. That's very tough. Well, almost definitely. I mean, it already is sort of a GL team. But that, well, in a way, I mean, it may make the SLK counter easier. More likely to time out, and probably more likely to time out, honestly. So I think Sifu can be really interesting in 5v5. Night Sisters will be even better on offense, but besides that, in general, there'll be some counters that'll be really strong, like, you know, Gas is going to be awesome. Bad Batch will be even more powerful on offense because of their true damage. You know, Night Sisters that I just mentioned with their percentage Plague taking a percentage of health. There's a lot of great team ideas out there, and I mean, you can just think of it when you're putting together each team and which of the teams are difficult to win before timeout happens. Like I expect for those people who have Tarful, um, oof, that team is going to be crazy. Has some hard counters, but amazing on offense, especially. Yeah, that's going to be quite the team. And who knows what Jedi Cal is going to do? Jedi Cal will almost certainly be here before the 5v5 season starts. Probably after the week one, the 3v3 season starts, we'll have Jedi Cal. So there'll be a lot more testing through some territory wars and stuff with him. But that's going to be interesting. Yeah, really, in 5v5, I don't see there being a lot of complexities. There's not that many defensive players left. Playstyle is sort of been dying for a while, or not dying. I mean, some people love it. It's great for streamers. You know, it's more entertaining in many ways. The streams are longer and stuff, more ups and downs and fails that make for good entertainment, I guess, for many players. But just as a way to, I don't know, to win more, most of the competitive players are making sure they keep a variety of offensive teams, because there is always, like, you can't put one team on defense and know your opponent's going to fail unless they have one team. You know, it's more complicated than that. So the amount of variety that you have and the amount of choices you have on offense really makes this a meta for more players who are like willing to make a lot more of those choices, who don't just put a bunch of teams on defense and then figure it out as they go, you know, and hope for other people to fail. I guess it's more the meta right now in 5v5 is planning to win rather than hoping your opponent will fail. Maybe two sides to the same coin, depending on what you like, but I don't see that changing with this DC combination. If anything, it'll be way easier. It's just the non-GL teams or some GL teams, you know, Lord Vader with 300% defense, Datacron, you can still beat him with SLKR, you know? Like, he'll be more annoying against other teams. Like, he'll probably shut down JMK. Although, I've seen it working with JMK also if you have the good level 3 set 8. But anyway, definitely going to have some interesting stuff in the meta, but I don't think it's going to be that complex. Just plan on having more offense to overcome the defense than you're used to. Ships. So ships are, right now, they're sort of stale. Will we get Leviathan before this 3v3 season is over? I don't know. I hope so. But probably not. I imagine we'll get it in about a month. It's because it's always been August in the past. I don't know. It's a tough one. I would love to see it sooner, but I think Jedi Cal is coming out, and then probably a bit of a break before Leviathan, but no one know to tell. Leviathan is very interesting though. There's a video from Still Plays, a very, very smart guy. I love his analysis and breakdown, the way he thinks of things. I'll link his video too in the comments of this video, where he looks at how we have all the ships supposedly for the Leviathan fleet now, assuming there's no reworks of these existing ships. Like maybe Sith Fighter might get a rework, hard to say. Anyway, we know all of the ships that are able to be put on the Sith fleet, so we can sort of guess on how the mechanics of the Leviathan will work, or how the mechanics of the fleet will work. And Still Plays does an awesome job breaking down the different components and how those components play against what the existing fleet meta is. And I think, by the way, the Leviathan will be a new meta. Next year there'll be another ship to compete with him, but it'll just be like when Executor came out versus Negotiator and Malevolence. Both of them could beat Executor, but it took a few weeks to figure those out, and you had to have certain gear levels and speeds and all of that. I think the Leviathan will be like that to the Profundity and Executor. It will probably have an off-tier counter, just like First Order was to was to Executor when it first came out. Even without, you could counter it even without TIE Echelon, though TIE Echelon made it a lot easier, obviously. So I'm thinking it's likely that there'll be an existing fleet who will be similarly powerful to beat, or a few existing fleets, but probably not as much with Profundity or Executor with their current common lineups. And so Still Play suggests Radis. Uh, the fleet Radis, not Admiral Radis, that is in character zone, obviously. That would be an interesting attacking from the ground, you know? Probably not going to happen. But anyway, awesome video. I love his thought process around breaking down the fleet mechanics for the Leviathan. For that analysis alone, I would highly suggest checking out his video. The parts where he talks about the mechanics are maybe less than 10 minutes long, and to understand what Leviathan fleet will probably do, I would highly recommend it. At the very least, to understand how the existing ships that we have already sort of work together. Very, very helpful, cool video. Who knows whether it'll be true or not, maybe not, but he makes some good points in there that I think are worth, again, just to understand what the existing ships do, it's worth a listen. So here's all the stuff from the existing fleet meta. I'm not going to repeat, everything's the same. So take a look and read that if you'd like. Pause. But most people are familiar with it. So game state meta. This is where things are getting pretty interesting, I think. So I feel that I've been talking about now for the last, almost since the beginning of the year when they started introducing all the new characters, the marquee characters, changing the datacrons. So basically the last 4 to 6 months where the results of their changes have been more obvious to me in terms of how the overall game works, both from an economy balance perspective to rewards, PvP interactions, character advancement, roster development, etc. They've been changing so many things. It's sort of like we're, as I say here, like halfway or 2/3 of the way through a full game reset. And in some regards, it's true. Like the way that it's changed. Well, let's go through my points sort of one at a time here. Only 3 points, so it's not going to take you and I that long to go through. This might be like in half an hour of the meta. It's amazing, so short. So PvP balance right now, it's pretty good. Datacrons recently have really not made single teams or factions incredibly powerful. They have allowed many teams to function, some a little more powerful one season, some a little more powerful the other season, or a lot more powerful in some cases. Some characters are very powerful. You know, Revo was the most recent example, Third Sister. But that only lasted for like half of one season. Not even half of one season. The Treya was almost immediately available to counter her. It was like a week and a half before the Treya Omicron showed to be a very strong counter against her. So, like, there's really no more super teams like there were in the arena days, you know, where you place one team on defense in arena and only be beat by a mirror. So that doesn't really exist in PvP any longer, which I think is fantastic. It's wonderful. And there's not really any of that frustrating, like, since set 4 or season 4 of Datacrons with the Empire resets and dodge at the same time. We've had now 5 sets. Set 6 was super powerful, but not quite as bad. And after set 6, 7, 8, and 9 now, everything is like, there's some powerful characters for sure, but nothing obscene, nothing crazy, no single team that just becomes a beast that you cannot beat. That's very, like, in general, quite well balanced. Let's just say that much. From an economy and gear perspective, so this is more like acquisition. I'm looking at it acquisition. How difficult or fast or easy is it to gear up your roster and get it to a competitive level, either from PvE content, the raid or Rise of the Empire TB, or from a PvP content perspective. So PvP is in general pretty good. It's pretty easy to get a character to relics now, to relic 3 even, um, and certainly to relic 5 for a few teams, you know, depending on what size your roster is, because they've sped up just in the last, you know, since we've had the new crate, well, the new raid system. It's not even just the crate dragon raid, although that's the only raid we have now. But the fact that you can unlock GAC or Han and GAC and basically get Jedi Knight Luke, like there's a whole series of characters that are much faster to get now compared to ever before. And you can choose the gear that you want. Everything to get characters to gear 13 now is so quick. It's going to take a while for everybody to realize this, to take advantage, to participate more in the raid, to get the rewards, to get in the 130 million guild, etc. But in the next year, this is going to be fascinating. And it's the easiest ever been to get a character, your whole roster, your group of characters, your prioritized characters, up to gear 12, gear 13, make them really capable to start using datacrons so you can do more PvP content, which is sort of the end game now, or was the end game, but now people are sort of shifting back towards, in terms of prioritizations at least, shifting back towards the raid system. But again, you just are gearing up via the raids or Rise of the Empire TB. There's no real reason to gear up for Rise of the Empire TB. It's more like, I mean, yes, gear up, but just so you can get more rewards and not do the combats anyway and just do operations, because that's what most of the GP is. So it all leads into my third point, like why are we gearing these characters? What is the point exactly? Oops. What is the point for getting these characters up? I mean, in the end of the day, this is a game, and there's no point in the end of the day. It's some digital asset on a server somewhere. But still, for the past couple of years, people were focused, a year and a half, I guess, since they made 2 years since they put the crystals into Grand Arena. That was a big priority for people. That was a great way to advance your roster, and it was always new and different. You know, you're fighting other players. There's plenty of downsides in the system, don't get me wrong, but there is, in general, quite a lot of engagement and people enjoyed it, or do enjoy it. And there's some people who enjoy territory wars, but both of the PvP systems are sort of dated, and especially territory wars needs some update. Like it's just not able to sustain at a competitive level, to sustain top tier performance. You know, you can see by the Paw Patrol Guild sitting out of TW for a while. Maybe if other guilds join, or not maybe if other guilds may join. But it's just an indication that for a guild of high performing players who care about being at the top-ish, there's not really a reason for them to participate in TW. The rewards are poor compared to the amount of time required. And the enjoyment, I guess, is, I mean, it's great to win, of course, but it's not really a lot of involvement from the majority of the players. You know, it's the officers, the people who are setting the goals. The players, what they're working on is spreadsheets and getting their stats to a certain level or something like that. But once they've done that, the actual territory, it's up just be online and do the attack that you've done 50 times before, or 10 times before, or you watch a video or something like that. You know, and some guilds do streaming for attacks. But it's not really a lot of like playing the game for most players in territory. So I think that game mode is definitely overdue for an overhaul, a change, whatever. GAC, I doubt I would love if GAC changed, to be honest, because it's like, I love GAC because I love the combat system of this game. I really enjoy it. I find it very interesting and so many different variables. I really, that's why I'm still playing this game, in the community, obviously. But GAC is decent. Like, it's a way to get your crystals, depending on when you win, when you lose. It's a fun way to see advancements in your roster rather quickly. because you do a lot of combats, so you can use many different characters. I think at the top end of GAC, the squish and the fact that, whether you're player number, rank number 10 or number 100 or number 250, you're still in Kyber 1 and getting good crystals every day. So why does it matter? The squish may affect us a little bit, because Kyber 1 is now like 1,000 people. Or no, is it 1,000 people? I think so. It's whatever. It's less and less every single week. So eventually this will have to be changed. Otherwise there will not be anybody in Kyber 1 in like 16 months or something like that. Literally there'll be less than 8 people. So eventually this will change. What they do with Kyber 1 is a great question. What they do with GAC, maybe they just adjust their algorithm and call it good. But I think something on the competitive side needs to change, because even if you look at it on the PvE side, let's say PvP play is no longer a goal. If you're building up your roster and doing all of this stuff for PvE, what is the PvE goal? Like, what are you trying to do in PvE? What are you going for? Gear up your characters so you can do the same content again over and over and over again? And nothing particularly wrong with that. I mean, that's, some people just love the roster building aspect of it quite a bit. But it looks like certainly that CG has set up, or they've talked about, whether they actually will do it or not, we'll see, a system to expand the existing environments they have, so like add a new raid, add a new zone. We'll see Zepho soon, and I think when we see Zepho, we'll get a good indication of what they mean by adding new content. Is Zepho just going to be like a currency mission or something like that, or will it actually be some interesting fight with a good, valuable, does it give you enough material to do one relic 8, a full relic 8, just with one mission or something like that? That would be nice. Half of a relic 9 maybe, so you get one relic 9 a month. That would be pretty cool too. Like, there's a lot of potential in Zepho. I don't have high hopes, but it'll be interesting to see what they intend by like adding these new zones. We'll see. I also think, and I skipped over this a little bit, I wouldn't be surprised if we get a new raid sooner than when people think. Because it's interesting if you think about how the progression is going. So a lot of people think that Geo layout will be next. Let's see, what did I put in here? Yeah. Yeah, so here I was talking about Zepho, and then, yeah, here's what I was talking about the new raid. So, yeah, we'll see if anybody listens or watches this video and we see some other creators speculate about this. I mean, the new raid is nothing. People have been speculating about a new raid for a while. Death Star raid. I think it's possible that you have basically Death Star raid as the next raid near to the end of the year. At the same time, you have Red 5 as a conquest character, the new conquest character, which gives us 3 months starting in July. So September, you'll unlock Red 5. What if Red 5 was a requirement for Leia, for GL Leia? And what if Red 5 was needed if you wanted to do well in the Death Star raid? And maybe the Death Star raid is what unlocked a character you also needed for GL Leia. Because if you look at the Empire and Rebel fleets, there's enough fleets, enough capital ships, and enough regular ships to make 2 full fleets there. So you can have like the defending the Death Star and attacking the Death Star to make this raid. I wouldn't be surprised. I think that could all tie together very well. And it would be a ship raid, which would be sort of additional motivation now that the Leviathan fleet would be out. So the fleet would be on people's minds. Of course, this is just all pure speculation, so who knows what actually happens. Anyway, I think what's missing is this sort of carrot, like what's going to get people to spend. That's the real question. Why are they building up their rosters? GAC still is there. I think a lot of people really still enjoy it. Um, TW is getting worse and worse and worse. I think the longer time, there's nothing to make it more interesting or good. You know, the Relic 9 materials are fine, but the difference between winning or losing, if your guild is the right size, is relatively minimal. And most people in those guilds will spend for Relic 9 anyway. So, you know, really what's for pride? Yeah, sure. Pride's important to a lot of people, but man, it's more like pride in the guild rather than pride in your own individual performance. You could have both, you know, if there's more of a way for people to individually contribute to territory wars. Anyway, we'll see what happens. So I do want to touch on a few things here, like Datacron specifics, before I call it quits on the fastest ever meta. It's gonna be like 40, 45 minutes, amazing. This past 5v5 season, Starkiller was everywhere. Amazing how good he was, especially with Mara Jade, Omicron, or Datacron, sorry. Datacron and game mode, there was an Omicron for her, true. I don't think that's going to change for the next 2 weeks or next 2 seasons. Even once set 8 is gone, the stat boosts does help Starkiller. Makes the team quite a bit better, more defensive, more durable, fantastic. Already very durable. Accuracy. We now have a level 3 that when units evade, you get accuracy up and your opponent gets unresistible evasion down. Set 10 could still have dodge. Who knows? As I mentioned before, the 15% stacking thing is buffed. But it's an interesting way to buff GLs in particular without like buffing the GLs by name, because GLs benefit the most from the stacking for sure. Like because they have the damage reduction built in, they will take even less damage across their much wider health and protection pool. So I like this as a way to make GL stronger without giving the GLs like some particular ability. Level 6 Sith, yeah, holy moly. Self-Dispel is great too. Sith are by far, I think, the best faction with set 9. Oh yeah, the no revive is going to be pretty good, I think, against Ray. And I would really consider using, you know, the set 9 versus Starkiller. Because if you have, you know, Palpatine, kill Ben, no revive, pretty nice. Pretty nice. Yeah, the level 6 for Old Republic, man. Niche uses, I guess, not bad. The level 6 for Night Sister is amazing in 5v5. The level 9 for Marin, and Marin I think is one of the better ones, top 3 in my opinion. Asajj and Talon are great, but I think the Savage and Zombie ones are the best level 9s for sure. Zombies everybody's going to be aware of. Savage, I think, I haven't seen a lot of comments on Savage, but that's incredibly good. Do you know the amount of turns he takes? It's insane. Like, that's super, super good. And he's like, he can be used on offense and defense, which is I think why it's especially powerful. Yeah, I think Savage is the best DC of the set for sure. And so many people can benefit from it because a lot of people have them at high relics already, or relic 7 or above, I guess. Or they have a lot of them in their relic 5, which is not a big stretch to put into relic 7, especially for these 2 months or 4 months that he's going to be here. Like, that is amazing. Amazing Datacron. And interestingly, this is the first DC since set 6 where the farming, or, okay, so it's 2 sets delayed, 4 months, 6 months delayed. The farming strategy is different for set 9. You should farm your level 3s, dismantle the level 3s once you're like at a certain level, and then take good level 3s up to level 6 and level 9. A little different at the beginning if you have materials to dismantle from the previous set so you didn't lose cash, but in general, especially for the next conquest, farm those level 3s, get good level 3s, throw away the rest, because otherwise re-rolling level 3s is very, very, very expensive. Better to save your re-rolls for the level 6 or level 9s, or stats really. Honestly, stat re-rolls are probably going to be the most valuable. Looking for more defense or maybe defense or protection, I guess, for your JML Crown. But farming strategy is totally different for this set than it was for set 6 and set 7 and set 8. Set 6 a little bit was like this, but not quite as much. There's a bunch of good level 9s for set 6. We're here. There's like 2 that are really, really good and another 3 or 4 that are nice, but not really necessary. So keep that in mind when you're going through conquest and farming. Makes it a little bit easier, honestly. The node 1 or zone 1 farming node is pretty easy to auto with a bunch of teams and a bunch of disc combinations, so makes it a bit easier. Anyway, that's all I've got for this episode. Good luck with your upcoming season. Good luck with your Datacron farming. Let's see what happens the next week with Zepho and New Cal, Leviathan, and maybe something else coming up in the next few months. There is for sure something coming. What it is, we don't know yet. So enjoy the rest of your weekend and good luck. Cheers.